Mm.
So did you, Allison, go and get blood work done? You visited the vampire?
I did visit the vampire, but the circumstances or the situation or the condition were totally and the antithesis to what I need to be in. So I left, and I will have to rebook. So
So they were inefficient in their process.
well, yeah, I don't even, I mean, before I would have left in a complete huff and being frustrated and whatever, but today it was fun, really fun, because they could have had a sick person or, you know, whatever, but I just realized it was not a good situation for me to sit in for an hour. So cut it short. So I made a choice.
Cool. Choice is a power. Superpower.
It is the only one you have.
And how often do we forget to use it? Me,
All the time.
1,000 times, yeah, 1,000 times a day, I was going to say.
Oh, no, we've convinced ourselves we don't have a choice. You made me feel that way.
Yep.
I
You
couldn't help
change.
it.
You change, not me.
Oh, yeah, but that's the whole point of life, is it not?
For some
Well,
perspectives.
every time we interact with another human, we change. So you can't not change. You can think, you can delude yourself into thinking you can't change.
That's right. And I don't understand why I would want that.
Well, I think it's a belief of stability where there is no stability. It's an unstable stability.
It's uncertainty. So one of the three pillars is it's part of the fear and uncertainty.
What's the third one?
You always have to take an action. There's always an action to take. Work to be done. Work to be done.
And it's awareness about the direction. It's awareness about in which direction you need to take action.
Yeah. Or I would say another, like so much the direction, but it's the direction of the focus, the thinking. It's like, oh, if I'm uncertain, I don't want change. That means I'm holding on to something that was better in the past.
But it also means that the internal structures that we do have actually, so that anchor that we have in ourselves of being, if that anchor is not strong enough, then there's an overwhelm of uncertainty. And so then there's the grasping for what could possibly be perceived as being certain.
The past is the only certainty. From that perspective, I mean, that could be a perspective.
Yes.
And that would make sense because it's happened. So that's real. And so that is what's certain. But what does it mean when we're focused on that past, as that is the certainty of it? What are we always creating in the new moments of now?
Recreating the uncertainty.
As it is certain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly.
It's a tough one. It's a
What-
very tough one.
Yeah. What do you think? What's the emotion driving that?
Fear. So there's more need for safety. So what I was thinking was, how do you guide somebody to that gap so that they can see it?
Yeah, great question. Great question. What do we want them to see? What did we need to see? What do we need to see? What do I need to see?
Yeah.
Mm.
There it is, attachment.
Yes. Always. In human relationships to ourselves and to others, it is always attachment. It's not grasping, right? So there are different uses of that term. In my languaging with people that are like staunch meditators, especially the ones from Zen culture, they go for detachment. But they don't understand the English word is not the same as the original word. It's not the same meaning.
So not being attached and detachment are different.
Mm-hmm. You detach from the charge, but you are in an attitude of love. And so therefore,
You're not
you
detached.
demonstrate you're not attached, exactly.
Can you be attached and detached at the same time?
I think you can. I think that's the ultimate experience of being aligned within you.
Mm-hmm.
Attached to disattachment, attached to disattachment, to unattached, attached to unattached. There it is.
Easy for you to say.
Potentially.
You know, there has to be, in my experience, there has to be some kind of a spark of, okay, there could be a better word, but of willingness, of give. And I don't mean give in terms of that you are, you know that word when you,
Like leeway?
yeah, there's got to be some release. So it's giving in that way, giving, and it's leaning into. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes place at different layers, you know, just thinking about in working with different people around intimacy, that people will come in my door, so they'll come that far, they'll make those moves, but they won't budge when they're once they're inside, and it's because they can't. And then you have to sit with your own tension and see how much you can give to that. And you reevaluate with every back and forth. And sometimes depends on how many times you're invited into that person's space. So the action words are inviting, aligning, choice, choosing love,
Curious.
curious. Very good one.
That's a good one.
So important, Jessie. And the curiosity is invited, right? Because you're curious, you invite. Listening, active listening, which is curiosity. And trust. Ultimately, always looking for where there's another could. Keeping the door open for that could. But not necessarily focusing on it, right? So then there's another dance that happens, and that's your own dance and your own with the rest of your life. Mhm.
Hmm.
Is no curious?
No, it's final. Or is
Not
it
always.
KNOW versus NO?
I think Jesse's talking about NO.
Yeah, no. Of course not.
It closes off options and coulds.
Mm.
Right. Point of it is people don't know they're doing it. Because it's such an automatic
Yes.
pattern.
Yes, definitely that happens. And that again, it goes back to the need for safety, right?
Mm.
So when we've got the capacity to be intimate with ourselves, and we continue, we use that dance, because it is a dance. It's a dance of closeness and distance. But between ourselves and others, and within ourselves. And I guess just talking about that then also comes in the role of expectations. Jenny, your words this morning of unconditional expectations.
Mhm.
Your 2 words.
What's where I notice we get hung up.
This is this one guy that I've got a lot of respect for, and he in psychotherapy, and he built his model around, which you think would be obvious, but he's the only one that uses the word, around being relational. That we're not individual, we're relational.
Mhm.
And I like how he's navigated. Or what's the other term that was used? What did you guys come up with? You didn't use a term specifically, Jesse. From the other morning when I left the group and I asked the question, sorry. Anyway, that comes to mind now. So I mean, what's coming for me is all just how, well, in intimate relationships, we're creating in the same way that we are creating just by being alive. So the difference is, are we creating consciously or are we creating according to our old patterns?
Mhm.
And how much of that gets communicated ongoing, because as we go into different phases of development, we change. We have to change. And again, it's whether we change consciously or not.
We're always changing.
Mm-hmm.
Are we resisting change?
And yet we'll say we're not. Oh, I'm staying the same. I don't want to change. It's like, well, every day we get older, get closer to death.
Yeah.
That's changing. You were
Yeah,
young, now you're old. That's a change.
Mm-hmm.
You learned new experience. That's a change. It's like, oh, why are we resist it? No, what we don't resist, or what there is that, oh, that identity, that label of who we are that we've created that says that's what makes us safe. That's what gives us joy. That's what we have. That's what I got to hold on to. That's what I'm grasping for. And there's no room for anything new.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a big problem.
Are you a problem solver or a creator?
Well, words matter. Words do matter. And without a doubt, and that someone that's resisting change will blame you as being a problem.
Hmm.
So you change. What's that saying? What's the underlying underneath of that?
I'm not going to. You're the
I'm
problem.
I'm too scared to.
It's unsafe.
Yeah. What does Grace say about change?
Well, she's had a little bit of a struggle the last day or so.
Of course we do.
She was, the lesson that we're both learning is that unconditional expectations, which is what I was trying to share with her, because she expects herself to be at a high vibe all the time, and you have dips, and so you have to embrace sometimes when you're feeling sad and let that feeling be there, honor it, bow to it, as Allison says. So that's what we did last night. And it's certainly easier to have change when you choose it. And if you feel like it's imposed on you, that's a natural invitation for resistance.
Right. It's fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah. You're pushed into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to be pushed into a corner.
No.
No,
What do you do when you're pushed in the corner? What do
You-
you do?
what I do is, it depends on who's doing the pushing.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll retreat, sometimes I'll fight back and stand up for myself. It varies.
Mhm.
I do all three.
We do.
I'll fight or I'll flee or I'll freeze. I've got a good dance going between the three of those.
Yeah. I'll
Okay,
fight.
yeah.
I'll surrender. Yeah. I'll give in. What do you want? Yeah. It's what's more important is what's there for you. How do I keep the peace?
Hmm.
How do I avoid the
Well,
conflict? And
keeping
in
the
many places I'll
peace-
fight.
Well, keeping the peace, PEACE, sometimes things fall to pieces. Because if you're not really being authentically you, at some point, something
We'll give.
crumbles.
Yep.
So how
Yeah.
can you be in your power? Is it always sacrificing your power to give peace to the situation? No, because there's times where it's not worth the argument. So sometimes you suspend, quote, winning the argument for the moment to reduce the tension, for not tension as much as the high emotion, which prevents conversation.
It's
When it's pure emotion, there's no room for discussion.
Yeah.
It's just a battle of will.
Yeah. When there's too much charge.
So there's sometimes a need to detach, go aloof, if you will, in order to get recentered or realigned to be more in harmony with our values when we do have conversation. Because the old adage, you don't want to say something you'll regret. So when the charge is high, sometimes dialogue is the worst thing you can do.
It's usually the worst thing that you can do.
Answer my question.
Why are you shutting
Why-
down? Why aren't you talking?
Why did you want to do that?
Meow.
What are you saying?
Why? I find it intriguing when I'm being asked, why does so-and-so do such and such? I get a charge out of that. So, because I can't really speak for the other person of why they're doing something. So I can never answer the question. So I say, well, why don't you ask so-and-so why they do such and such? That's my answer. Because I don't know.
So what's coming up for me is you've changed in that situation where you're being responded to with the words, you've changed. The one thing that comes to mind for me is, yes, but my love or my commitment to this has never changed.
It's a good one.
So what do a spin it? What a good spin.
That's not spin.
Hmm.
Is it spin?
Yeah.
Well, it's been in terms of that it refocuses, right, Jenny?
So reframe, I like reframe. Spin, I guess I get a marketing
Mm.
thing, so it's just a word. I see what you mean. You turned it around.
Yeah. You bringing in another, um, you're bringing in another window.
Hmm. And it
look
also looks at what's really going on. Where is it not safe? So
Mm.
the statement "you've changed" could imply unsafe, lack of safety. This is not comfortable.
Oh yeah, for sure it does.
So that statement, I may have changed, we all change, but my commitment hasn't changed, restores safety
Well, it's a
a
could.
little.
It's
Could.
a could. Yeah, it's a spark. It provides a spark. Whether that spark will take or not, you don't know.
Mhm.
And also what I'm thinking about too is that it's very different when okay, so the different roles that we play for people, we can only hold up the mirrors of those roles or the mirrors of the expectations of those roles. So as a therapist, I can say things to people that if they had to say that to themselves, it would be murder, never mind divorce. Right? And I can say it because their expectation of me in the role is a very different one.
So
That's the advantage that you have.
yeah, being impartial, if you will, that's not the greatest word, but in that sense it
Yeah.
is. You're a third party observing and finding the truth in between the two, because
Yeah.
there's two opposing perspectives, and
Yeah.
the two players would have difficulty trying to see the other player's perspective because it's different.
Yeah.
It takes a high degree of self-awareness to be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes when it's charged.
A very high degree.
So what happens when one person has that ability and the other one doesn't?
Hmm. It depends on a number of things, but ultimately it depends on the facilitation, which can be through any medium, the facilitation that takes place for the person that doesn't have the skill to get a spark of awareness.
Hmm. So the bridge is yes and.
Oh, very much so, correct. Yeah. Also, that other thing about you've changed. Yes, I have. But my commitment to this relationship, to living with you, to being with you, to raising children with you, my commitment to be the absolute best that I possibly can has never changed and never will, according to me. Where does that leave you? And the comeback could be, I don't know. It could be, well, you haven't behaved that way. it could be a whole number of things. So then what do you then do with that comeback? And then again you say, I can see how you might feel that way or perceive it that way. Can you maybe allow a little bit of a different perception just for a day or two or for a week? I used to walk in the door with groceries and Bruce would go ballistic. How much money was spent, how much is going to be wasted. And I remember the first, because initially it was no problem, and then all of a sudden it was a problem. And it was that all of a sudden it was a problem. And I was like, I remember that day still, that disorientation. And I couldn't match his response and reactiveness about it to what I had been invited into. So my expectations there would be that would never be a problem. And he didn't know what to do with my reaction either. I mean, I don't think he even saw it because he was so much in his.
So what was different?
From what had been before. He had hardly paid any attention to it. I'd just gone and done the groceries and brought them home. And the fridge was full.
Awareness. It wasn't in his awareness before.
Yeah, but it was more than that. He had gotten triggered through something else.
Right. That's what I was thinking. You can't be triggered or charged. What is it? You can't get triggered if it isn't already charged. So something occurred around supply, money, whatever the word is, to make it a focal point.
Scarcity.
Scarcity. Yeah, exactly.
So
Okay,
scarcity in one area can highlight it in another.
Oh, yeah. They're usually linked.
Scarcity drives no.
Yes. Yes. So you have to go and speak to the scarcity. So if he sometimes flips into it now, which does happen some days when he's had a bad day, and then I can just look at him and say, I mean, now I can look at him and say to him, honey, look at me. I'll say to him, the fridge is going to be full for 3 days and then it's going to be empty.
Again.
And we can, yeah. And we can keep it empty for a few days if that's what you want. But it also depends on the weather. And, so by the time I've gotten to that kind of detail, his whole system is coming down.
So is that accepting and honoring the present state?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I have enough internal security in myself now, so I don't react. Even though a part of me is thinking, oh, Jesus, do I really have to go through this again? this is not a, this is a small thing, but it wasn't a small thing, because from that small thing, there were all sorts of other things that took place. But if you can speak to that scarcity, and you speak to it with curiosity, right? You make an invitation, you give an invitation for the space, for that scarcity to be expressed, to show acceptance and validation of why that scarcity would be there, and validation of how awful it must feel for that person at that point in time.
It's a delicate dance,
It's a very delicate dance.
because if you shift the pattern and you attempt empathy where you hadn't before, sometimes the pattern is provoking a response or attempting to. And if you don't respond in the same way, it diffuses that attempt, and it can sometimes inflame again.
Exactly, yeah. And you don't know what's going to happen until you try it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there does require a level of awareness on both parts, and an invitation to that awareness. So perhaps that's the skill.
Ultimately, it does, yes.
How do you teach awareness without teaching awareness?
I don't know that. I don't know. I think you can. You demonstrate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it does show up, you validate it.
Mm. And if it comes through as a personal attack, you validate that too.
Yeah. And you can say it. That's ouch. Ouch, that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm also hearing is maybe
So there's this old technique called the talking stick. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm.
And sometimes I've had to implement that in a way, saying, please let me get this out without interruption.
Mm. Mm.
Because what happens sometimes is there's an interruption and a deflection to a different topic, tangential, and then we never get back to the first one.
Oh.
So
Mm.
literally asking to hold space,
Yes.
just like put your hand over your mouth and let me get this out. And then when I'm done, I'll put my hand over my mouth and let you get out your reaction, but I need to get this out. Because what happens is there's a back and forth, and then you're off on another tangent and you never resolve.
Which then is
And
not the
it's-
intention. So the intention is not to resolve. The intention is to bring up.
There you go.
Mm.
The intention is to verbally vomit and dump.
Yeah.
It's to go back and blame.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong. You are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right. I'm right. You always do that. It's yours. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You always, and I'm like, have we not covered this?
Mm.
All generalizations are false.
I'm sorry to laugh, guys. Fuck. Oh,
It's true.
God.
And my antenna goes up when there's a generalization, and I'm like, well, that's probably not true. Mostly not. All
Yeah.
of them are false. And then you'll get these are funny ones. Most people, I'm like, well, can we talk about us instead of most people? Married people are supposed to blah blah blah. Okay, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, that piece of paper that says we're legally married.
It's a choice, though, every day, isn't it?
Or that thing I walk around with that says, "Oh, I'm taken."
Mm.
I own you.
Well, not necessarily.
No, some
Yeah.
people say that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
do. My wife. Meaning when I say that, my wife, that's me taking ownership. Ugh,
Mm.
that's a habit that's in there. It's like, ooh, I don't like it anymore.
Mm.
There's no choice in that. It's not mine, first of all.
So my mind goes to my significant other, my partner, but still the my is the ownership, right?
Mm.
So this person I'm in relationship with, I mean, it gets to be kind of long.
It's like, yeah. Our marriage, I mean, ours, it's ours, so it can be ours.
Mm.
We are. I don't know. I just noticed the my in it.
That's true. Although I was thinking it is a dance, right? It takes two to tango, my mom used to say. So you're both dancing. Sometimes you step on each other's toes. Sometimes it's ouch. And sometimes you dance alone.
Sometimes it doesn't even look like dancing.
Yeah, that's
I
very
mean,
true.
you look at fights and it looks like they're dancing too.
Mhm. Get the soccer boppers out.
But marriage has to be a certain way.
Yeah, that's
Says
where,
who?
yeah. But
Well,
that's
we
the
do.
thing.
We do.
Oh,
As a
no, it's the woman's job to keep the house. You're home all day.
Well, yeah.
But
So
that's what,
I'm the woman now.
yeah, but the thing is that when you look at the patriarchal culture that has evolved, and you look at the demands put on either role, it is insane. It's absolutely insane. How the hell is anybody supposed to live up to either of those roles?
That's the key to it.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Thanks to Disney.
Yeah. Well, never mind. It was there long before Disney was around.
Well, that's the only one I'm familiar with, so that's what impacted me. But yes, I'm
No.
with you. Yeah.
The Brady Bunch, Father Knows Best, all
The
those
Flintstones.
shows.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yabba dabba do.
Yeah. And so then it goes back to our identity, right? Where
But
do we
you've
want to place
changed.
our identity?
Your identity changes. You've changed.
Yes, but my love has not. And then the comeback could be, oh, sure, it hasn't, because I haven't changed. And then you
Mm.
say, you haven't.
So what's
but
the
I
real
have."
question? How do you experience love in this partnership?
Yeah, that's the real question, Janine. There you go. And how do you want to experience it?
Mhm.
There you go. That opens it all up.
And can you answer that yourself?
Well, can you love yourself? Because that's the only place it needs to come from.
Right, that's what I meant. Can you answer it for yourself?
Mhm.
Can you fill that need yourself that you're seeking need to fill? Can I fill the need in myself that I'm seeking you to fill?
Mhm.
So I think the worst movie line ever is the Jerry Maguire "You complete me" line. No one can do that.
Yeah.
I think that effed up a lot of people.
But
What
that's,
they-
but that's a reflection of the expectations in our culture. That's what I
Mhm.
was thinking about.
Thanks to the diamonds.
Yeah. Yep.
The blood diamonds. The
Well,
big
I'm
green.
just a piece of coal that's stuck to the job under pressure.
I am your diamond. You just haven't cut it enough yet to find it.
Needs a little polish.
Little polish. Oh, geez. Always polishing. Always polishing.
And the polishing requires some friction, and sometimes that's uncomfortable.
Unless we are already completed.
Are we ever complete, really?
I mean, no, like, I mean, I don't see, if you're going to live, I don't see how you could be, but I do see and empathize with how we get stuck in it.
Well, I
Me
guess you are
too.
complete if you choose it and work from there, from that space of alignment, then that is complete. In this moment, I can feel complete. But I just changed in the next moment.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I encourage it. I expect it. For me, I don't like it all the time, but I do find that when the highs go high, your lows get lower.
Mhm.
The point of is, where's the trajectory? Where does
Yes.
it settle? And if it isn't settling higher, better,
And then what's the definition of higher and better? It's your end result, right? Is how close is it to your end result?
Mhm.
And so that, I think that's also important in these conversations. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, just to invite and share the perception and the intention of the end result. So there's, for me, as we were talking also, there's a difference between being complete, and as Jenny was saying, are we ever? But there's also this thing, Gigi, it's the same, for me, it's the same as that dance that we do between our, the different levels of our functioning. So between self-conscious, unconscious, and superconscious. So, oh, sorry, no, it's just gone.
Well, like where you triggered me was the difference between whole and then complete. That's what I
Yeah.
They're
heard. in
different
it.
words.
Yes. So
One is
you,
a whole number. So you are whole. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
and it's all, but it's also, so what came up for me was there are some things that are kind of a default for us. I mean, there's no ways in which I would ever be able to be married to someone who had no wish to explore the nature of life. I just couldn't do it. So it's that kind of acceptance about where you are. And in that way, that's a kind of a, it's a kind of a completeness. It's not a fixedness, but it's an accepting of, I guess it's the same, you could say the same thing of the acceptance of your body structure. You know, is that going to attract or dispel people, like whether you're tall or short, whether you've got all your limbs or not, or so there's certain kinds of points that you get to at times in a marriage where people really have developed along different paths. And it's important because it's important to be aware of that. And I guess what I'm saying again is it's always important to be able, for me, it's always important to be able to be aware of where your boundary is. You know, a monogamous marriage has different boundaries to a polyamorous marriage or polyamorous relationship. In those, so yeah, I don't know if this is making sense, sorry. So it's again, it's for, I think what I'm talking to is that everything has a time and a place where it's got to be stable and where it needs to be more fluid. That's what I'm getting to. Thank you.
Mm.
Say the word again, the words of that phrase again. It's like, what is like the question? Like, what love do you need from the relationship? What is how did we phrase that? Do you remember?
Yeah. What do you want going forward?
How do you experience love in this relationship?
How do you need to?
How do you need to?
Yes, very good, Jessie. Very good, because that's acknowledging, right? And what do you want going forward?
You know, I think of the 5 love languages.
Mm.
And so you might be acknowledging, affirming, doing things like that, and the person wants flowers or gifts or acts
Thank you.
of service. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
Everyone wants validation. That's what I've heard my husband say. Everybody needs to be validated.
He's right.
Shortcomings are
people-
full.
That people might not need the validation, but they appreciate it when they get it.
Hmm.
You know, even if they don't need it, they appreciate it.
So what I've started to do is celebrate small completions. And sometimes he'll interpret that like if I go, see, now you can see the rug. I got all the clutter off the rug. And he'll sometimes see that as a weakness that you need to be validated.
Oh, so then he perceives that there's a weakness in him if
It's-
he needs.
It's like a searching for a compliment. It's not really the compliment. It's like I'm starting to celebrate the things that I'm completing, because if I don't, it feels like nothing got done.
Mhm.
Oopsie.
So when I verbalize it, it comes across as fishing for compliments, and that's
Right.
not the intent at
Do you
all.
want a cookie? You want a medal? You want a ribbon?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do. Give me a plaque. Pomp
Thank
and
you would be nice.
circumstance.
An appreciation. Yeah. Mhm. It doesn't pick itself up.
One day I said, you know, this is a magical house. Magically, the laundry goes into the laundry, goes into the dryer, gets folded. Magically, the cat hair and dog hair gets cleaned up. Nobody knows how it happens. It just happens while they're at work. It's just magic. But nothing happens because I'm home all day.
I
And
know.
all I do is sit on Zoom calls all day long
Mhm.
and get my 20,000 steps in.
And that's what I would do if I was at home. Because that's what I do when I'm at home. That's the experience, you know. It's like putting it on there. That's what I do when I'm at home.
Mm.
No, you don't. You're not ready to make a $40 million offer today.
Well, I can't speak about $40 million offers either. So I need to do a little better on that department.
You don't have to. I mean, it may not be yours to make.
Oh, I think a $4 million one would make him, a $1 million one would make him happy. A $500,000 one would make him happy.
No, it wouldn't.
I know, I'm only playing.
I know.
I go back to Mo Gaudet, and he's like, he had 16 cars, and he realized in every single one of them, I'm looking at a steering wheel and out a windshield at the road.
Yeah. And I'll buy two of them just because one wasn't enough, you know, at the same time.
But I can only put my butt in one.
The disease. When I get that, then I'll be. When I'm married, then I'll be. When I have the kids, then it'll be. And you'll see that we keep having kids when we shouldn't be having kids. I haven't met anyone yet that children has fixed their marriage.
Oh God, no.
But they'll keep kicking them out. Because that'll be better. Anywho, anyway, anyhow. Thank you for turning this. I thank you for, I mean, it's like guiding the guy. It's guiding marriage. Yeah, it's guiding relationships. It's guiding what we do here with one another is to experience love unconditionally. And when we can love without conditions, oh my God, I can't wait for that.
Unconditional expectations and love.
Love doesn't judge.
Oh, come on.
Love doesn't hold on, grasp for what was there last time, yesterday, 10 years ago, or whatever Disney told me marriage should be. And I didn't even watch Disney, but there's a lot of princesses running around that that have.
Mm.
There's a few that have a mind of their own.
But then there's always the prince, it's like, because that's what we had to be, is the prince, the provider, the give it to you. Then when you have it all, and it's like,
Not
then I
enough.
can love you.
Mm.
No, it's not enough.
I know. What would be?
Well, in that structure, nothing would be enough.
That's the point. That's the whole point. That's when you have to come to terms. If the other person cannot bridge that divide, and you have to realize it's not personal, it is just what is there for them. That's a tough one.
Mm.
But when you rise above that, as we say, I don't know whether it's above, I think it's you broaden.
Mhm.
And you
You
can
don't-
hold that and contain that.
That's right.
Different.
You can't, when you broaden it, you can't be, you won't be trapped, contained.
Yeah. It doesn't determine or limit,
Yeah. All right. I got to step off. I got another call. I got to go get on.
Thank you.
so much, Stacey.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Thank
y'all.
you,
Appreciate
Gigi.
it. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.